Friday is all about the Kentucky Oaks, Philly Friday, if you will, at Churchill Raider Gym. We touched a little bit on the Oaks last week, and we weren't necessarily flying blind, but we didn't even know who was going to be in the race. We didn't know post positions or morning line odds. We know all those things now. What are your thoughts as we get ready for the run for the Kentucky Oaks?
Yeah, and real quick, as you said, these are stacked cards, and so
Yes.
before we get to race 11 on Friday, first of all, Friday in Louisville, supposed to be mid-60s, a very slight chance of rain, probably not. If anything, it'll be a quick sprinkle. I know I was watching some stuff online from the training sessions this morning, a little breezy and a little cool, but other than that, everybody was saying, even with their jackets on, a very beautiful day at the racetrack. So that's in the favor of everybody that's in attendance, and of course, those who are riding and the horses. But before we ever get to race 11, let's look at race 5, the $600,000 Ali Sheba Stakes for 4-year-olds and up. Let me tell you, this is a loaded race with the likes of Rich Strike, Last Samurai, Art Collector, and West Willpower. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at that card or not.
I'm checking it out right now, and Art Collector was my horse to keep an eye on this year, and I see it running with Last Samurai and Rich Strike and West Willpower. Those are just the first 4 horses too. Just throw it out there. This is a stacked card.
$600,000. This is going to be a fantastic race. Almost everybody's a favorite in this one, but of course the standout is West Willpower, Brad Cox, Flavian Pratt at the reins. You can't go wrong with that combination. Art Collector, that's William Mott with Junior Alvarado on the saddle. The 2-horse Last Samurai, the Godfather, D. Wayne Lucas is the trainer for that horse with Luis Saez running. And then third, the 3 position is Rich Strike, and that's going to be Cy Leone in that on the saddle on that one. Those would even be the 4 horses that I will probably combo all the way around on that one, because I just don't see anybody else in the field making a run and pushing either one of these 4 horses out of the money or out of the final 4 finishing. So number 4, West Willpower, 1 Art Collector, 2 Last Samurai, 3 Rich Strike. What are your thoughts on those in that field?
Well, I mean, obviously the scene of the crime, if you will, for Rich Strike, where last year at 80-1, I think I'm reading it. Yeah, 80. Let's round it up, 81-1. Rich Strike, and what a run that was last year in the Kentucky Derby. Now I think you talk to those connections and tell them 366 days ago that they'd be in this position, they'd probably think you were absolutely insane. But here we are. That's a horse that, I'll be honest, I've been skeptical on. But has come out and ran well. It hasn't been in the winner's circle since the Derby, but it's obviously been bumped up to grade 1 and grade 2s. For me, Art Collector, it's all about how this horse is running. And I go back to about a year or two ago, and this was a horse that was running in the Triple Crown, and I had high hopes for it, and pretty much all 3 of the races really did struggle, but has kind of come back to form in its latter years, 6-year-old. I think this is just a fantastic card and really shows this is just the first race on Friday as well. And obviously it's going to be an incredible weekend at Churchill.
Yeah. Yep. And then after that, we go from 5. There's a couple good ones in between. Then we get to race 9. Race 9 is the $750,000 La Troen Stakes. It's a grade 1 for fillies and mares, 4 years old and up. And again, here we go. There's more very well-known names running on this one. Secret Oath at 3-1 is the favorite right now. Classy, and running out of the 4 spot. Out of the 6 spot, it's Classy Edition, Todd Fletcher with Irad Ortiz in the saddle. That's 8-1. Good value on that horse. That horse is going to make a real race of it. So 8-1, I would keep my eyes on that one and definitely put it on the ticket. It's going to be on mine. And then the other 2 to round out my top 4 are going to be the 1 and 2 horse. Search Results is in the 2 spot. Chad Brown and Flavian Pratt at 4-1. And number 1 on the rail, Play Hard, Bauer and J.R. Velasquez is going to be riding at 9-2. Also good value. So these are good numbers on these: 3-1, 8-1, 4-1, 9-2. Keep an eye on them. The only concern I have on the 1 and 2 horses, Play Hard number 1, Search Results number 2, is they've had extremely long layoffs. Yeah, well over 150, 160 days. I think one is even at 180 days. So interesting to see how they come back and respond after such a long layoff. But the workouts they've had, very, very promising. Chad Brown's none of these trainers are going to put a horse out if they're not ready to go on for a race like this. But, grade one, $750,000. What a field. You can't go wrong. And we're not even at the main event yet.
Yeah, for search results, I think for search results, that horse is probably just happy not to see Malathot. And you talked about the layoff. Breeders' Cup Distaff last November was the last time this horse ran. But it's Chad Brown, it's Flavian Pratt. That's a great way to start. Obviously, Secret Oath, I think, is going to get a lot of attention. This is, one of the top fillies last year, and actually won the Kentucky Oaks. So we have the defending Kentucky Derby and the defending Kentucky Oaks horses running, essentially the same weekend as the Oaks and the Derby. Obviously, this one is, I believe, 2 races before the Oaks. Definitely not unusual, but it is kind of a cool little storyline. I liked your call about Played Hard. That's a good horse on the rail. I think that's going to be real comfortable for that horse. I do want to see what happens with Society, because this was a horse that was 4-1 or 5-1 in the Breeders' Cup Distaff and finished almost 18 lengths off the lead. Now, obviously, the Breeders' Cup Distaff is the top of the top for fillies. It's going to be interesting. It's no longer Florent Giroux. So you got Jose Ortiz on there, which definitely, is still a very adequate rider, and with, of course, Steven Asmussen. But I'm interested to see what Society does in this one. I think there's a lot of value going around here. But it's almost like the 3 young bloods of the Distaff last year are now kind of graduating to the big side of filly racing for this year.
And then we finally make it to Friday's main event. That's going to be race 11, 1 1/8 mile, the $1,250,000 Kentucky Oaks. Post time is slated for 2:51 Pacific Standard Time. And I'm telling you what, it's quite a field. There's a lot of, I watched a lot of the stuff from Churchill over the last 2 days. And it's really interesting to even hear the true professionals of handicapping and how varied their opinions are on who the favorite is, or no this one or no that one. There was not a real solid consensus between any 3 or 4 guys. There might have been some picks here and there that overlap, but a lot of them did not actually have Wet Paint as their number one.
Wow.
So looking at it, here's some of the things that we want to talk about here. There's going to be, if you break it down into groups of 3, and this isn't going to include all 14 horses or entries, but it is going to talk about some of them. You're going to look at the early horses. The early horses meaning who's going to be the pace setter, who is probably going to be looked at just firing right out of the gate. One of them is that horse, Dorth Bader. Dorth Bader, I don't think is going to end up in the money, but has also been having great workouts and does have a quick out of the gate step. So you got to watch that one to start setting a pace, along with Defining Purpose and Botanical. Botanical ends up on my ticket. Early odds right now are 4-1 on Botanical. Then you look at those stalkers, the ones that just kind of like hang back and wait, and eventually they get around the back stretch, or they're coming around the turn, that far turn, and they start making their moves. Those horses I've got down. Pretty Mischievous. Pretty Mischievous could also end up moving into the early category and be a pace setter. Affirmative Lady. And then also South Lawn. South Lawn's also on my ticket. Great value right now at 8-1. Then we've got our off the pace horses. Those are the guys that really just kind of sit back, let everybody else set the pace, do what they want to do, and then all of a sudden they drop down into that 5th gear that most of them have. Those would be Gambling Girl and Tell Me No Lies, but I don't think and Tell Me No Lies is going to have what it takes to really make a race of it for this field. But Wet Paint is one of those off the pace. Wet Paint just kind of does what Wet Paint wants to do. You have a good jockey on, and you're going to be fine with that horse. That horse knows how to compete, knows that it's in a race, and is not the horse, as a couple people I heard say, not going to go out and burn up the track and win by 5, 10, 12 lengths, but they're going to win handily. So my horses going into this one, I do have Wet Paint with Defining Purpose at 12-1 right now, South Lawn at 8-1, Botanical at 4-1, and then my 5th underneath, I want to keep it to 5 horses because I don't want to go bankrupt on Friday, but I'm looking between Wonder Wheel and Pretty Mischievous to round out my 5 horse ticket.
Yeah, I have 4 myself, and you kind of touched on at least 3 of the 4. I will say I'm interested to see how Wonder Wheel finishes in terms of the odds. Because I like this horse, but I don't like it in single digits to 1. This is kind of my, underneath long shot, maybe throw a place show ticket just in case, something crazy. This horse has the ability to win this race. However, already lost to Defining Purpose in the Ashland, has really struggled in its last 2 races, relatively. So I'm interested to see how the horse runs, but I would just kick myself if this horse somehow gets into the money and I left it off the ticket because of 2 runs this season from a 3-year-old. And so I just definitely keeping an eye there. Obviously, Wonder Wheel, one of the more intriguing reasons is, of course, you have the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Filly. This is your defending champ. So we have Wonder Wheel White running in the Oaks, and then, of course, Forte running in the Derby for that Breeders' Cup pedigree. In terms of the best horse, I personally, and I am actually surprised that, there weren't a ton of people that were very bullish on Wet Paint. I think Wet Paint is the class of this field, and I'm glad you brought up the kind of, hanging back, because just looking at this horse, the last 2 starts were wins by a combined nearly 6 lengths. This horse was 12 lengths off the lead last time out and 7 1/4 at that quarter pole. Now, go back to, we're going to say 3 races ago. It started really well. It was in second place. It was only a half length off the lead, ended up finishing a length and a half off the lead when it was all said and done. So I really do think this horse has the ability to stay back. However, there's a lot of early pace in this one. I'm trying to find it's now a question of how much early pace. There it is right there. Flying Connection might be the horse that kind of, I don't want to say ruins everything, but just kind of makes this a bit of a very interesting race, because this horse is so good early. Now that doesn't mean this horse is going to be on my ticket, but it's just a question of how much length can Wet Paint give up and still be able to win this race. Because I'll put it to you this way: unless you're getting exotic with Wet Paint or you're taking this horse to win, there's not going to be a whole lot of value there. 5-2 morning line, I expect that to be closer to 2-1 or even money when it's all said and done. But Botanical at 4-1. This is another horse just like Wonder Wheel. I want to see where the odds are. If I can get Botanical even at 4-1, I'm very excited about that. 4 to 6-1 would be perfect. Obviously, anything higher, I'd be even, a little bit better about that. But I do wonder how, especially after what you just said about some of the, whispers around the betting world. I mean, if it's not Wet Paint, who is it, And Botanical has to be one of those. So interesting to see how the odds fall. And then South Lawn. I would probably hit the trifecta box with Wet Paint, Botanical, South Lawn, and then get, a place show on Wonder Wheel. But I do see a ton of value on South Lawn where it is right now. And I know I sound kind of so diplomatic saying where the odds fall, but, if South Lawn and Botanical are both 3-1, then I'm probably going to step away. But if I can get Wet Paint at 5-2, Botanical at 4-1, and South Lawn at 8-1, I'm feeling good Friday afternoon. So that's how
last time Southland was out in end of March, won the Fairground Oaks grade 2, won it going away. Ran a real good race there. So watch Southland. I think that's going to be one to watch. Again, I don't see anybody pulling so far ahead of Wet Paint that Wet Paint's not going to be able to take care of business. But that's just me, and it could be it could be the writer too, because I have, let me make sure I got that right. Yeah, I'm just that Flavian Pratt guy, president of the Flavian Pratt fan club. It's just like, you could put him on a horse with 3 legs and I'd say, of course he's going to win. He's Flavian Pratt. He can do anything. So, but that is pretty much my take on the Oaks. And really, you get a chance, or if anybody watching this gets a chance, even if it's after the Oaks, go on and look at the Churchill Downs morning workout show that they do on a regular basis. Fantastic insight, well put together, a ton of information in less than an hour, or right around an hour, and very, very knowledgeable people.
Good call there. One final thing I do want to say about South Lawn. It's a horse that's ran twice this year and has gone from a horse that, cost almost $300,000 as Pioneer the Nile as the sire. It might have been looking like, we don't know. A lot of 55s, 54, 63 Bayer scores. Now, obviously, those are as a 2-year-old. So it's kind of like, your infancy as a racehorse, but back-to-back 86s, back-to-back wins. Something happened this kind of off season, if you will, or just, the December to January situation that this horse was able to flip a switch, and we'll see if it can continue on Friday. But Jim, what were so I know the Derby is the Run for the Roses, and apologies because I know you said it last week. What is the Oaks?
The Oaks, still, when they're doing their training workouts, even, you can identify the horses because the Derby contenders will have yellow blankets. The Oaks contenders come out with pink blankets with their names on them, and they get a blanket of lilies. So they call it Lilies for the Billies.
There we go.
They got the nickname for the race for tomorrow.
Perfect. Yes. Knew it was something like that. But yeah, it's going to be a very interesting race, and going to be one that I know myself, I'll be setting my alarm and taking my break at work a little late to enjoy this one. I tell you, I wish there was a situation looking at this card where, in the next 3 or 4 hours, I could get, a little bit of a little tickle in the throat. Well. Maybe it's best stay home tomorrow, but got to be responsible. I will be keeping all eyes on Saturday.